They see the scars and think they know the story. A map of failures, they whisper. A testament to a man broken by the world. They see the weathered lines etched into a face that has seen too many dawns after too many desolate nights. They see the ghost of a commander who led his legion into ruin. And in their judgment, in their pity, they are utterly and completely wrong. These marks are not the brand of a victim. They are the architectural plans of a fortress. The man they think they see, the ruin, the cautionary tale, he does not exist. He was a fiction, burned away in the fires of true reality. What stands before you now is merely the watcher from the walls of a citadel they cannot see, a fortress built in the silent, violent world of the mind. And the chilling truth they will never grasp is that I have never been more powerful than I am in my ruin. You feel it too, don't you? That quiet war within, the relentless siege of doubt, the cold dread that seeps through the cracks of your resolve in the dead of night. You have built walls of ambition, of routine, of hope, only to watch them crumble under the assault of a single bad day, a single harsh word, a single moment of weakness. You feel like a city perpetually at war with an enemy that lives within your own gates. An enemy that knows your every fear, your every weakness, your every secret shame. This enemy whispers to you in your own voice, telling you that you are not enough, that you will fail, that you are an imposter who has fooled the world for a time, but the reckoning is coming. It tells you to be comfortable, to seek pleasure, to avoid the pain of growth, to surrender to the sweet poison of mediocrity. And so you fight. You distract yourself with noise, with work, with the endless pursuit of things you don't need to impress people you don't like. You patch the walls of your city with fleeting moments of happiness, but you know, deep down, you know, that you are one storm away from total collapse. You live in a state of perpetual, low-grade anxiety, a prisoner in a kingdom you are meant to rule. You feel the immense, untapped power thrumming beneath your feet, the potential for greatness, for an unbreakable inner peace, but you don't know how to build the foundations. You don't know how to become the architect of your own soul. I know this because I was that city. I was a sprawling metropolis of pride, of ambition, of vanity. My walls were adorned with the trophies of 100 victories on the battlefield. I was celebrated, feared, and respected. I believed my own legend. I thought my fortress was my reputation, my rank, my legion of 10,000 loyal men. And then in the valley of the shadow, a place where the sun itself seemed to die, I learned that my fortress was made of sand. In a single day of blood and smoke and screams, it was all washed away. The world I had built was annihilated. My men, my name, my honor, all turned to ash and whispers on the wind. I was left with nothing but the scars you see and the deafening silence in my own head. And in that silence, I heard the enemy for the first time, loud and clear. It was the voice of my own despair, and it was a more terrifying foe than any army I had ever faced. It was there in the rubble of my life that I began to build a real fortress, not of stone and mortar, but of something far stronger, of thought, of principle, of will. I learned that the mind is the only territory that is truly ours, the only ground that can never be conquered unless we allow it to be. This is not a metaphor. It is the fundamental law of a powerful life. You are not your body, you are not your job, you are not your reputation, you are not your possessions. These things can be taken from you in a heartbeat. You are the silent watcher that lives behind your eyes. You are the sovereign of your inner world. And it is time you built your kingdom a fortress that cannot be shaken. The first step, the foundation of it all, is to understand the geography of your own power. You must draw a line in the sand of your reality, a line that separates what is within your control from what is not. This is the most important distinction a man can ever make. Outside this line lies everything else. The opinions of others, the state of the economy, the weather, the past, the future, whether someone loves you or betrays you, whether you are praised or condemned. The common man spends his entire life in a state of rage and anxiety, trying to command this outer world. He is a king screaming at the tide to turn back. He is a fool wrestling with the wind. He ties his happiness, his peace, his very sense of self to these fleeting, uncontrollable things, and so he is perpetually a slave to them. When things go his way, he is euphoric. When they do not, he is in despair. His inner world is a chaotic reflection of the chaotic world outside. My legion was outside that line. My reputation was outside that line. The loyalty of my political allies was outside that line. I poured my soul into commanding these things, and when they were stripped away, I felt that my soul had been stripped away too. That was my great error. Inside the line, however, is a very small but infinitely powerful territory. Your beliefs, your judgments, your choices, your actions, your will, that is it. That is your entire kingdom. It is small, but it is absolute. No one can force you to believe something you do not choose to believe. No one can make you judge a situation as bad or good without your mind's consent. No one can hijack your will unless you surrender it. Every event in and of itself is neutral. It is simply a thing that happens. It is the label we attach to it, the judgment we form in our minds, that gives it its power to harm us or help us. The day my legion was shattered, the event itself was just that, an event. A series of moments in time involving men and steel. The world did not label it a catastrophe. I did. My mind, conditioned by years of pride and ambition, judged it as the end of all things. And so it was. The pain I felt was not from the swords of the enemy, but from the judgment of my own mind. The shame was a phantom I created. The despair was a poison I chose to drink. It took me years in the wilderness, with nothing but the silence and the stars, to understand this. I could not change the past. I could not bring back my men. I could not erase the whispers of my failure that echoed across the empire. But I could change my judgment about it. This is the first brick you must lay in your fortress. For every situation that troubles you, for every person that angers you, for every fear that paralyses you, you must ask a simple, ruthless question. Is this within my control? Is this inside my line? If the answer is no, then you must train yourself to meet it with a single, powerful phrase. This is nothing to me. It is not apathy. It is clarity. It is the strategic withdrawal of your energy from battles you cannot win to fortify the one battle you can. Your boss can fire you. That is outside your control. But whether you see it as a devastating end or a liberating new beginning, that is entirely within your control. Someone can insult you. Their words are outside your control. But whether you allow those words to pierce your soul and fester into resentment, that is a choice. You can be imprisoned in a physical cell, but your mind can remain free. Or you can live in a palace, a slave to your own untamed thoughts. Where are you choosing to live? Stop fighting the tide. Stop wrestling the wind. Turn your gaze inward and begin the great work of mastering your own kingdom. Every ounce of energy you spend on what you cannot control is stolen from the kingdom of what you can. Once you have laid this foundation, once you have drawn that line in the sand, you must build the walls. And the walls of the mental fortress are forged in the fires of discipline. Not the fleeting discipline of a New Year's resolution, but the deep, soul-level discipline that becomes a part of your very identity. Discipline is not punishment. It is the deliberate, conscious choice to trade what you want now for what you want most. The undisciplined mind is a slave to its impulses. It is a feather in the wind, blown about by every passing craving, every fleeting emotion, every distraction. It seeks comfort above all else, and in doing so it creates a life of profound weakness and regret. The man who cannot control his own appetites, who cannot command his own focus, who cannot endure a moment of discomfort, is not a free man. He is a puppet, and his strings are pulled by his own lowest instincts. The fortress of the mind is built brick by brick, with small, daily acts of chosen hardship. It is in choosing the cold shower when your body screams for warmth. It is in doing the workout when your mind begs for rest. It is in reading the challenging book when the glowing screen promises easy dopamine. It is in eating the clean food when the poison calls your name. It is in holding your tongue when every fiber of your being wants to lash out in anger. Each of these small victories is a brick. Each one says to your weaker self, I am in command here, not you. I remember my first winter in the mountains after my fall. My body, accustomed to the comforts of a general's tent, was a traitor. It shivered and ached and pleaded for me to go back to civilization, to beg for scraps, to surrender. My mind was a storm of self-pity and rage. The path of least resistance was to simply lie down in the snow and let the end come. But a small spark, a flicker of the man I once was, or perhaps the man I was meant to become, refused. I forced myself to rise before the sun, to plunge my body into the icy mountain streams, to hunt for my food, to train with a heavy log until my muscles screamed. It was brutal. Every day was a war. But slowly something began to shift. The voice of my weakness grew quieter. The shivering of my body became a hum of resilience. I was not just enduring the hardship, I was choosing it. I was forging my own will in the crucible of discomfort. I realized that what I was building was not physical toughness, but something far more important: proof. I was providing myself with daily, undeniable proof that I was the one in control. You must do the same. Your battlefield may be different. It may be the battle against the snooze button, the battle against procrastination, the battle against the junk food in your pantry, the battle against the endless, mindless scrolling. Do not see these as trivial things. They are the training grounds. They are where you build the muscle of your will. Do not try to build Rome in a day. Just lay one brick. Win one small battle against your weaker self. Tomorrow, lay another. The power is not in the grand, dramatic gesture. It is in the relentless, daily accumulation of small, disciplined choices. These choices are the mortar that binds your fortress together. They build a powerful momentum of self-respect and self-trust. You begin to believe in your own ability to endure because you provide yourself with proof every single day. The man who has conquered his own laziness knows he can face the world's challenges. The man who has mastered his own anger knows he cannot be provoked into foolish action. The man who has disciplined his own focus knows he can achieve his goals. Build your walls, one chosen hardship at a time. With the foundation laid and the walls rising, you must now construct the watchtowers. The watchtowers of your fortress are your perception. It is from these towers that you observe the world, that you interpret the events that come your way. The undisciplined mind sees the world through a cracked and distorted lens. It is a lens fogged by ego, fear, and past traumas. It exaggerates threats. It personalizes insults. It sees conspiracies where there is only circumstance. It jumps to conclusions and lives in a state of perpetual reaction. To live this way is to be blind, to be a guard in a watchtower who is hallucinating enemies at the gate. The stoic mind, the master of the fortress, cultivates a perception of pure objectivity. It learns to see things as they are, not as we are. It strips events of the emotional narrative we so desperately want to attach to them. This is the practice of seeing the world with a naked eye. An insult is not an attack on your very being. It is simply sound waves vibrating in the air, interpreted by your mind. A failure is not a final judgment on your worth. It is simply an outcome, a data point from which to learn. Traffic is not a personal conspiracy to ruin your day. It is simply cars on a road. When news of my disgrace reached the capital, the stories were monstrous. They called me a butcher, a fool, an incompetent coward who led his men to slaughter. In my old life, these words would have been daggers. My perception was entirely tied to my reputation. The watcher in my tower was obsessed with the opinions of the crowds below. But in my solitude, I learned to build a new watchtower. I learned to look at these reports with cold objectivity. The storytellers. Men with their own agendas, their own fears, their own need for a simple villain. The story. A collection of words, a narrative crafted for an audience. It had no power over the reality of what happened, and more importantly, it had no power over the man I was choosing to become. Their judgment was their own. It was a part of the world I could not control. My perception of it, however, was mine alone. I could choose to see it as a fire that would consume me, or as the fire that would purify me. This is a skill you must practice relentlessly. When you feel the hot flush of anger, the cold grip of anxiety, or the heavy weight of sadness, pause, ascend to your watchtower, ask yourself, what just happened? Describe it like a scientist with no emotion, no story. My business partner chose to end our venture, not he betrayed me and ruined my life. The person I love decided they no longer wish to be with me. Not, I have been abandoned and am unlovable. See the difference. The first is an event. The second is a story. The story is where the suffering lies. By stripping the event of the story, you rob it of its power to cause you emotional harm. You see it for what it is, a circumstance to be dealt with, not a catastrophe to be endured. This objective perception is your greatest strategic advantage. While others are panicking, lost in their emotional stories, you remain calm. You see the battlefield clearly. You can make rational decisions. You can find the opportunity hidden within the obstacle. The obstacle is not the way. The obstacle is the way. The Emperor Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world, wrote that the mind can adapt and convert to its own purposes the obstacle to our acting. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. This is not a clever phrase. It is the operating manual for a powerful mind. The wall in your path is not an endpoint, it is climbing material. The betrayal is not a wound, it is a lesson in discernment. The failure is not a verdict, it is an education. But you can only see this, you can only make this conversion if you are standing in the watchtower of objective perception, not drowning in the moat of emotional reaction. Now we come to the heart of the fortress, the keep itself. Within these walls and watchtowers resides the sovereign, the king. This king is your reason, your ruling faculty, your conscious will. But a fortress, no matter how strong, is useless if its ruler is weak, indecisive, or a tyrant. The great work of your life is to cultivate a king worthy of the kingdom. This king, this inner sovereign, must be governed by virtue of, not by passion. The cardinal virtues of the Stoics are the four pillars of this inner throne: wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. Wisdom is the king's chief advisor. It is the ability to differentiate between what is good, what is bad, and what is indifferent. For the Stoic, the only true good is virtue, and the only true bad is vice. Everything else, wealth, health, reputation, even life and death, are considered indifferents. They are not inherently good or bad. They are merely raw material for virtue to act upon. The wise king within you is not swayed by the pursuit of wealth or the fear of poverty. He is concerned only with acting virtuously in either circumstance. This wisdom frees you from the endless, exhausting chase for things that have no real bearing on your character, which is the only thing of true value. Justice is the king's decree. It is the understanding that we are all part of a larger whole, a human brotherhood. A just king acts with fairness, with kindness, with integrity, not because he expects a reward, but because it is the right thing to do. My anger after my defeat cried out for vengeance. It wanted to see the empire burn for what it had done to me. But the nascent king within me, guided by a new sense of justice, understood that this was the path of a tyrant. True justice was not about revenge, but about rebuilding myself into a man who could be a force for good, even in exile. It was about treating the few hunters and travelers I met with the dignity they deserved, regardless of my own station. Justice is about seeing the world beyond the narrow confines of your own ego. Courage is the king's champion. It is not the absence of fear. A man who feels no fear is not brave, he is a fool. Courage is feeling the fear and acting anyway because your reason has determined it is the right thing to do. The battlefield taught me about physical courage, but the wilderness taught me about moral courage. The courage to face my own flaws, the courage to sit with my own painful memories without distraction, the courage to accept the truth of my situation, the courage to forgive myself. This is the courage that matters most. It is the courage to do the right thing when the easy thing is an option. And temperance is the king's treasurer. It is the mastery of your own desires, the virtue of moderation. The intemperate man is a glutton, not just for food and drink, but for praise, for pleasure, for attention. He has no center, no inner stability. He is perpetually hungry. The temperate king within you knows what is enough. He finds joy in simplicity. He is the master of his appetites, not their slave. He understands that the more you need to be happy, the more vulnerable you are. By wanting less, he possesses more, because his happiness is not dependent on anything the world can give or take away. These four virtues are not abstract ideals. They are a practical guide for every decision you make. Before you act, consult the king. Ask, is this wise? Is this just? Is this courageous? Is this temperate? If you can answer yes to these questions, then act with full conviction, regardless of the outcome. The outcome is not in your control. The virtuous quality of your action is. This is how you build an inner throne that cannot be toppled. This is how you become a king in your own right, a ruler of the one kingdom that truly matters. But even the strongest fortress can be betrayed from within. There is a saboteur that you must guard against with constant vigilance. This enemy is the negative visualization of the future, the habit of anxious forecasting. The undisciplined mind spends most of its time living in a future that does not exist, imagining all the things that could go wrong. It plays out scenarios of failure, of embarrassment, of loss. This is not preparation. It is self-torture. It is poisoning the present moment with the fear of a phantom future. This worry is a prayer for what you do not want. The master of the fortress does not ignore the future. He prepares for it. And he does so with a powerful tool, a secret weapon, the practice of premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. This is the reverse of worrying. Worry is emotional and chaotic. Premeditation is rational and strategic. Each morning, the watcher in the tower calmly and deliberately considers the things that could go wrong during the day. He imagines his business failing. He imagines losing his possessions. He imagines a loved one getting sick. He even imagines his own death. The purpose is not to wallow in morbid fantasy. It is threefold. First, it is to inoculate yourself against the shock of misfortune. By having already visited these scenarios in your mind, you rob them of their power to paralyze you if they ever come to pass. You have a plan. You have rehearsed your response. The man who is surprised by the storm is the one who drowns. The man who has practiced for the storm knows how to sail. Second, it is to cultivate gratitude for what you have right now. By imagining losing your health, you appreciate the feeling of a strong body today. By imagining losing your loved ones, you are reminded to treat them with love and presence today. By imagining losing all your possessions, you realize how little you truly need and how rich you already are. It turns the mundane into the miraculous. Third, and most importantly, it reinforces the fundamental principle: what is in your control and what is not. In every imagined scenario of loss, you ask yourself, what would I do? How would I respond with virtue? How would I use this as an opportunity to practice courage, wisdom, justice, and temperance? You realize that while you cannot control the event, you can always control your response. You could lose everything you own and still choose to be brave. You could be struck by illness and still choose to be patient. You could be betrayed and still choose to be just. You are rehearsing your invincibility. I learned this practice the hard way. I never imagined losing my legion because I believed it was impossible. When it happened, the shock shattered me. Now every morning I walk the perimeter of my mental fortress. I imagine a landslide destroying my small cabin. I imagine my body growing old and weak. I imagine the memory of my name finally fading from the world completely. And in each scenario I affirm my power. The cabin is wood and stone. My body is flesh and bone. My name is just a sound. But my will, my capacity to choose virtue in the face of it all, that is untouchable. That is the bedrock upon which the fortress is built. Stop worrying about the future. Start preparing for it. See the worst, and you will be prepared to face it. Finally, the ultimate strength of the fortress is not in its ability to keep the world out, but in its ability to find peace within. The final piece of this architecture is the acceptance of fate, the principle of amor fati, to love your fate. This is not a passive resignation. It is not shrugging your shoulders and saying, "It is what it is." It is an active, joyful, and powerful embrace of everything that happens, both good and bad, as necessary and perfect. It is the belief that every event in your life, every perceived victory, and every devastating defeat is a necessary ingredient in the creation of the person you are becoming. To wish for any part of your past to be different is to wish that you were not who you are today. It is to argue with reality, a fight you will lose 100% of the time. The energy you spend on regret is the most wasted energy of all. It is trying to change a past that is written in stone. Amor fati is the alchemy that turns stone into fuel. It is looking at the scars, the failures, the pain, and saying, "Thank you. You were my greatest teachers. You were the fire that forged me. I would not trade you for anything." I hated my fate. I cursed the gods, the enemy, my own foolish pride. For years, my past was a poison I drank every day. But through the slow, hard work of building this fortress, my perception shifted. I realized that without the loss of my legion, I would have remained that arrogant, shallow commander. I would have lived and died a man obsessed with things I could not control, a stranger to my own inner world. The destruction of my old life was not the end. It was the necessary demolition to clear the ground for a far greater construction. That valley of shadow was not a grave, it was a crucible, and I learned not just to accept it but to love it, to be grateful for it. That catastrophic failure was the single greatest gift I have ever received. This is the final key that locks the gates of your fortress and makes you truly invincible. When you can look at whatever life throws at you, the promotion, the demotion, the love, the heartbreak, the success, the failure, and say, "This is what I would have chosen. This is necessary. This will serve my growth," then you cannot be harmed. You are no longer a victim of circumstance. You are a co-creator with destiny. You have taken the final step from being a pawn in the game to being the game itself. Every event becomes an opportunity. Every setback becomes a lesson. Every moment becomes a chance to practice virtue. This is the path I have walked. From the ruins of a life built on sand to the unshakable walls of a fortress built in the mind. This is not a journey for the faint of heart. It is a lifelong commitment, a daily practice. It is the great work. The question now is not whether you are capable of it. You are. The question is whether you will choose it. Will you continue to live in a city of sand, vulnerable to every storm? Or will you begin the work of a master architect? Will you lay the first brick? Will you draw the line in the sand today? Will you choose one small act of discipline? Will you ascend your watchtower and see the world as it truly is? Will you begin to cultivate the king within? This journey, this is the MidQuest Chronicle, not just mine, but yours. We are a legion of builders, of watchers, of sovereigns of the mind, and we are just getting started. The world will tell you to build your life on the outside, to seek validation, to chase fleeting pleasures, to construct a fragile identity based on things you can lose. We know the truth. The real work is within. So I ask you to join this legion. Begin your chronicle. Tell us in the comments below What is the first stone you will lay? What is the first battle you will win against your weaker self? Your answer is a declaration. It is the sound of a hammer striking the first stone of your own fortress. The storms will come for you. The world will test your walls. It will send its armies of doubt and its assassins of despair. Let them come. Stand on the ramparts of your new home, look out at the chaos, and smile. The fortress of the mind is not built to keep the world out. It is built to keep you, the true you, the unconquerable sovereign, unshakably and peacefully safe within. Now go and build.